this week I'm joined by a couple of my coworkers at KMUZ. We have the board president, Melanie Zermer, and our project manager, Dave Hammock. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ken.
Thanks, Ken.
And you have some rather exciting news about KMUZ. And so, Dave, why don't you talk a little bit about where we are and how we got here?
Well, thank you, Ken. KMUZ, the community radio station whose studios are in Salem, is licensed, city of license is Turner, has been on the air for 3 years. The license issued by the FCC about 4 years ago gets us on the air, but ironically doesn't really reach Salem. So we've been, even though we were elected best radio station in the Mid-Valley by the Statesman Journal Readers Poll 2 years running, we joke that we're the best radio station no one can hear. The power is about half a light bulb out at our transmitter, and it's directional, so most of it doesn't beam into Salem. So from the very beginning, even before 88.5 was on the air, we knew we were going to eventually need, as soon as possible, need a translator, a repeater, to serve Salem. So we have been working on this for years, literally. And starting about 2 years ago, we found out that a fellow community radio station, the big one in Portland, KBOO, had a translator frequency serving the city of Corvallis that had become redundant to their needs. So we finagled and negotiated and got use of that. And then we had to finagle and negotiate with the FCC to move it to just to serve Salem.
Yeah, and just to interrupt, he's a great finagler. He's got a lot of experience in the community radio realm. So Salem is really lucky to have Dave Hammock here.
Well, thank you. This has been a trial. I've done some finagling in the past, but this sort of takes the cake. So the big announcement we have is that Saturday, the 24th of January at 10 a.m., we are going to turn on K264AA, which you'll probably never hear on the air. That is the call sign of a new translator. A translator is essentially a repeater. It's a term of art in the broadcast industry. A translator receives a signal off the air, translates it to a different frequency, and repeats it. So essentially it's a second transmitter. This one much closer to Salem than our main transmitter and pointing directly into the heart of downtown Salem. So KMUZ will be heard will continue to be heard on 88.5, but will also be on the radio dial in Salem and Kaiser at 100.7. We'll be filling both frequencies with the same great programming.
And we'll have a graphic coming up here shortly that'll kind of display that information and try to burn it into people's minds about where we are and how they can listen to us. So this is going to help downtown. Now I can kind of get the station a lot of places downtown, but this is going to make the signal that much stronger and better for the majority of people that live in this area.
It's not a 50,000 watt blowtorch of a signal by any means, but it will be much better than 88.5. The FCC broadcast engineers will tell you that the measure of reception strength is called dBUs. Call them widgets, call them bobs, dBUs. That's the measure of reception strength. And you need 65 of them to have a reasonable chance at reliable indoor reception on consumer equipment. Turner, the site of our 88.5 transmitter, delivers 65 dBU or better reception strength to some 34,000 people, not one of whom lives in Salem. The translator at 100.7 will deliver 65 dBU or better signal strength to an additional 200,000 people, almost all living in Salem and Kaiser. So around town, you won't lose the station every time you go under a traffic light or a power line, and many more homes. I won't guarantee every inside room in a building everywhere in Salem will get booming signal strength indoors, but in most of Salem you'll finally be able to tune us in on your home stereo.
But you can listen to us via the internet.
Oh yes, we'll continue to stream on the World Wide Web. Anymore, that's considered necessary for a station, and given the changes likely to occur in the next decade or two in the whole distributive paradigm, that's important, and we continue and will continue to stream on the web. But for those folks who like to use their radio, or remember what a radio is as an appliance, we'll be available on 88.5 and 100.7 starting Saturday the 24th.
Yeah, and a lot of people listen to the radio in their car, so driving around, being able to tune us in as they're traveling through the city is important.
And that's one of the things that the station has been working on, is trying to get more information about what's going on here in Salem, not just music. And we have a number of programs to kind of address that issue.
Yeah, I mean, that's the whole purpose of a community radio station, is that you reflect back what the community is and share with each other what's going on in your own hometown.
And we have a couple of, well, we have one history show that we play around noon that's very informative about how Salem came to be. And so that's, I know, a favorite of a lot of people that listen to KMUZ. They like listening to the history of Salem.
Right.
And we have some news programs and some other things going on. But, you know, the majority of programming that we have is music.
Right, right.
Well, the challenge a community station faces, especially one like us, is that we rely on volunteer programmers. We don't have a paid staff. Someday we may have a couple of folks around to kind of, but their job will be to keep things going. We will always be relying on volunteers from the community to create the programming, the handmade and homegrown radio. And so we suffer a little bit from, we have to take what's available to us. And most people who are motivated to be on the radio want to play their tunes. But we're really delighted. We had a couple different radio series that Virginia Green had produced.
Jim Shepke.
And Jim Shepke. Hopefully we can lure them back in the future. But now we have a new history program that has just started.
Yeah, Salem History Matters.
And more, as we are able to train more people and get more people interested, we hope to be able to do more in the way of reliable, scheduled community information and even news programming, like Willamette Wake Up with Ken Adams. But that's our goal. But we've got to get the signal delivered, and then we'll always be working on the programming.
Yep, always refining the programming. It'll always be getting better.
And Melanie, you've been kind of working on trying to build up relationships within the community. And so why don't you talk a little bit about what you've been doing in that area?
Well, you know, as a community radio station, we're also, by definition, an educational station and a public service. So we need to feel, or we need to have the community feel like we're important and that we reflect back what the community is about. So it's important to work with other nonprofits to make sure that we are serving them, because we are a service organization. And in that vein, we are developing partnerships so that we help out each other. Our newest partner is the Pinnacle Theater, a nonprofit organization doing community theater for 60-some years. And they're going to do a benefit for us. You know, they do benefit performances for nonprofits. And so this is our first time getting a benefit performance for us, KMUZ. It's their first play of the season, Lend Me a Tenor. So if you buy a ticket for Wednesday, January 28th, you'll be supporting KMUZ and live theater. And then
have a good time as well.
And have a good time. It's a fun show. It's a farce. It's a comedy, so it's light and fun. And then in return, what we get to do is talk about Pinnacle Theater on the air. We call them underwriting mentions, like we thank the Pinnacle Theater, so then people hear Pinnacle Theater on the air, makes them more aware of it. But we also have a theater program, and Ann McBride does Theater Talk, and she showcases all the community theaters going on in the area. So that's another way we give back. We're serving all the community theaters with that show. So that's just one example of a partnership. We have a partnership with Straub Environmental Center. We record their series, and then we play them back on a program called The Forum. So they get the word out through our radio station as well as their live forums and presentations. We're also talking about their upcoming Green Events Award on March 7th. So we talk about their events on the air, and then they talk about KMUZ at the event. So it's like cross promotion. So those are just two examples of the kind of partnerships that's mainly what I do, is partnership development.
And so what are some of the other functions of the board president?
Other duties as assigned.
Right, right. Well, because
Putting out fires.
Well, you know, obviously fundraising is critical for the whole board. So we have pledge drives. I meet with individual people to ask for funds and support. I've gone to different corporations to ask for large grants and that kind of thing. So fundraising is important, and because we don't have any paid staff, duties as assigned. Yeah. There's a few of us on the board who have a little bit more time in our schedule, so we meet regularly and we act as the executive director. Yeah.
So one of the other things that I've noticed with KMUZ is it has changed over the last year or so, because you are trying to get more programming that you know, like you were mentioning about Ann doing theater talk, but we also have one that's talking about arts. We also have another show that's done here at CCTV called Real Film Snobs, and we replay that over there. So, and we're working with others to try to maybe get a book review show started. And so there's been some development in this direction, and we're hoping to continue that. And so what are some of the ways that you see of the station going long term?
Well, let me just jump in and say that the station's mission, we say, is KMUZ, celebrating the people, civic life, culture and civic life of the Mid-Willamette Valley. Now, with volunteer programmers, most of them want to come in and share their love of a particular genre of music. As we have resources to direct our programming, we want to make sure that more and more of what we offer celebrates the people, culture, and civic life of the Mid-Willamette Valley. Many of our music hosts are great about having local and regional musicians live on the air, which is just, okay, we're on the right track there. And we want to develop engaging programs that talk about either local issues or local history, or let organizations and people come in and use the radio to talk about it.
Right.
Speaking of community partners, this sort of partnership with CCTV is a natural for us, and we're looking forward over time to being able to pool our resources to help both organizations cover the things that are of importance and significance here in the Valley.
Yeah, I would like to really thank CCTV, because CCTV worked really well with us during the election coverage. We shared a lot of content. We cover a lot of similar issues, and people who don't have cable TV, who will never be able to tune into CCTV, anybody has access to a radio. So it's a nice partnership for content sharing. And
starting on Saturday the 24th, that radio will be able to hear us at last. even in Kaiser and Salem.
Yes,
so.
Yes.
Yeah, because mostly that signal is well heard in like Jefferson and parts of Albany.
Oh,
and also Monmouth and Independence.
Right.
Yeah. It's been ironic that Albany most of Albany had a better signal than most of Salem, and we have a strong signal in Monmouth and Staten and Jefferson and Saya. We're just, but
the truth is, most of our supporters have always been here in Salem. So the people who could not hear us on the radio were the ones who supported us the most. So I feel so happy that we can finally give back to the community who's been giving to us.
And I should mention, too, that we do podcasts of a lot of these informational shows.
Oh, sure.
And if people go to KMUZ.org, they can look under archives and find the podcast. So if they miss something that they're interested in, we do a lot of things around the Salem City Club as well.
Oh, right, right.
And so people can go and access those anytime they want, basically. So that's another good thing that I think KMUZ offers folks, that you don't have to be listening at the time. You can pick it up later.
Yeah, and you talked about some long-term goals. Eventually, we would like to be able to go out and broadcast live. That takes equipment, takes some training, but that would really be a great service to the community. Like, for instance, there's a festival coming up early in March called the Polk County Folklife Festival, and we're going to be playing around with the possibility of maybe doing some live broadcasts from there. We can't be assured of that yet, but that's one of the things that we're going to be working toward in the next year or two.
That's right. We're almost certainly going to be able to probably broadcast it.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that definitive answer. And also, speaking of CCTV, last year when we had a Local Roots CD production,
Oh, right.
CCTV covered that and actually started showing it on CCTV.
Yeah,
and there was a lot of good music on
Yeah.
that program, and we're doing another one.
Yes. Oh, man, that was such a great event last year. It was the CD was produced by our local program host, Robert Richter, from the Local Roots show on Sunday evenings. And he produced another one. And his shtick is all of his performers are from the Northwest. And the new CD that's going to be available during our February pledge drive it has 24 musicians on it. 21 of them are going to be playing live at our event on April 11th. So I know CCTV will be there filming that as well, but that's an open to the public event, and it showcases Northwest musicians.
And that's, I think, something that's very good for local musicians to have an outlet. And we don't have just Robert's show, but we have Northwest Notes, and we have Sons of Salem, who all do
Mash
local
Up with
musicians.
Mark.
Mash Up with Mark.
He does a lot of local folks.
But there's a lot of people doing strictly local kind of shows, and we have other people who will mix in local music along with more national type music.
Well, one of the things I've noted, I answer the phone during the day a lot, so and I was kind of surprised, is the extent to which several musicians, including some who I think of as more than just a local dude who plays down at the seemed just so remarkably grateful to have the opportunity to come be on our radio station. Now, we're proud of our radio station, but we haven't had tremendous reach. This starting on Saturday the 24th, it will get better, but we haven't had much reach. And it made me think just how challenging it is for a lot of musicians who didn't go through American Idol or were not part of some corporate music mill, how hard it is for them to get exposure. Yes, there's YouTube, yes, there's the internet, but even so, it's hard to get traction. How do you get the viral thing started? And we're delighted to be able to offer that service for musicians who are, particularly if they're from this area, if they've got some music that is not cut to the standard, formulaic cloth. We're happy to have them on the air, and we're happy to talk about them. We have hosts who will interview them and find out why they're doing the kind of music they're doing and what they want to do. Similarly, we want to be more and more reaching out to other assets, whether it's visual artists, whether it's performances like the theater talk, or whether it's, again, civic life. How many, even as weak as our signal is, there's like half a dozen city councils in our coverage area.
Right.
We want to make sure, and a lot of them do not get on the media. The media that dominates this community comes from Portland. And as I've opined on a number of occasions, places like Turner and Jefferson, even Salem, have a hard time getting on Portland media unless there's a murder at a meth lab. Almsville had to have a tornado to get on Portland media. So, we want to be the local radio station. We want to be both the window to the world for people who live here and the window of people for our communities to the rest of the world, to the rest of Oregon. We participate in a statewide organization of community radio stations in Oregon. We want to be part of a broader community and be that channel by which people who live in the Mid-Valley can express themselves and begin to find a greater audience for their ideas or their art or whatever. So that's our mission. We're finally able to start projecting a bit further and getting into more and more homes here in Salem and Kaiser.
And you are having a pledge drive coming up in February.
Right.
And
Why, yes, Ken.
Funny you should ask.
well, that is, why don't you give me the dates on that?
February 7th through the 13th, Saturday through Friday.
So people should tune in and
What
listen,
could be-
because we have some excellent shows during Pledge Drive. I mean, people
Always, but even better during pledge drive.
well, I mean, people get excited because quite often they partner up with other folks, and it makes for very interesting, I think, radio, and people are enthusiastic because a lot of times when you come in and you're playing your music, you're usually by yourself. And during Pledge Drive, we kind of match people up, and usually there's 2 or maybe 3 people in doing a show. And sometimes it makes for a very nice mix.
Sure.
And there's a lot of enthusiasm, I've noticed, that
Yeah.
goes on.
And hilarity ensues.
On some of the shows, a lot.
Yeah. One of the things I would like to point out is that because KMUZ is a community radio station, so it's not just us doing something for you out there in the listening audience. You can participate too. So you can find out how you can get involved by going to our website. But then also within all of the volunteers itself, we are a community in and of itself. We're a bunch of strange bedfellows coming together, raising this child called KMUZ. And yeah, Pledge Drive does kind of create some bonding for us.
Yeah, we are a 501c3 nonprofit Oregon Public Benefit Corporation, but we're a little guy, and I think KMUZ is a remarkable story, having come into being and bootstrapping itself up, starting in 2008, when the economy collapsed. Anybody who's in the nonprofit sector knows just how challenging it has been since then to do anything. And we not only got started then, but we have finally achieved what I call a modest solvency. There's nothing left over, but we're making our bills. And but we don't get funding from the federal government or from the state. We did receive a small grant from Marion County, their community project fund, that helped us build this translator, for which we are deeply grateful.
Yes.
But we do not operate with any public funding. So we rely on our listeners and supporters and our business partners for underwriting and such. So our pledge drives are very important. We consider ourselves good stewards. There isn't a penny goes out the door that doesn't have fingernail marks in it and isn't squealing. We know that when people give us something, that sometimes is a sacrifice for them, and we want to make sure that we give good service for what people donate to us. But the pledge drive is critical. We do 3 a year, and that's really where our income comes from.
You know, one of the interesting shows that started just a couple of weeks ago was our first real classical show.
All right.
And I know that Dave is very interested in classical music, so he was very happy about getting some classical music. But we have an interesting mix. We have jazz, we have accordion, we have blues shows, we got rock, we have and we have bluegrass,
world
music. Right. And you know, you were talking earlier about how grateful musicians are. I was subbing for one of the local shows, Northwest Notes, during February of 2014 when it snowed heavily. I walked down to the station because it was treacherous conditions out there, and I invited a local musician. You know, I told him I was going to be playing his music, and he said, "Well, can I come down?" And I said, "Well, of course you can." And so he drove down there. It was quite a distance, and made it down to the station. I got to do a little bit of interview with him and talk to him about his music. But he was just really happy about having his music on the air. And that's an example. I mean, it is, a lot of times musicians like being heard, and now they know they have somebody that they can come to and like that.
And for nonprofits too, we've had shows where we specifically showcase the nonprofits. Our Willamette University students have a show called Woo Tunes on Sunday afternoon, and that's what they do. They bring woo-hoo.
Woo Tunes, they're playing their music, woo-hoo.
Right, woo-hoo.
Yeah.
That's the one where they bring in nonprofits. So that's a great partnership right there. Willamette University has gotten more involved in KMUZ, and they should. We're part of they are a big part of the community. So nonprofits, local musicians, local civic issues. That's what we're trying to cover. We're doing the best we can, and I think we're going to get better, especially with the community's help.
And you know, there's another show that plays here called, that we run, called Aging Without Raging. And Lee Coyne, I talked to him, and he does shows down here. He does book reviews and some other shows, but he's been doing that radio show for well over a year talking about aging. And that's another important thing, as some of us can attest to, that it's a much different atmosphere about what happens as you retire and go through other issues, and he covers that on a regular basis. And so we do have a lot of, I think, niche kind of subjects that you won't hear other places, especially here in Salem.
And you know, that's really critical to mention, because I know a lot of people who tend to listen to community radio will tend to be OPB listeners. And it's really hard to pull people away from highly professionalized, well-funded programs. But all I can say is that you need to also tune in to find out what's happening here too. So switch back and forth, find shows that you really like here on KMUZ that reflect your community. I see KMUZ as a community building tool. And as a region, we need to come together and work with each other. And I think the radio station is just part of that tools that we need to use to build our community.
Yeah, we'd like to become the backyard fence between Salem and Scioto and Monmouth and Kaiser, where neighbors can get together and chat about what's going on and share ideas, and where possible, pool our energies and our resources. That idea of localism is important. We know that there's such a vast array of media outlets and streams of programming and content available to everyone, that it's really hard to capture someone's absolute loyalty all of the time. In fact, if you listen to us all through the day, you are a remarkable individual, because we will have gone through so many genres and changes. You have very wide-ranging taste if you do. But I've learned now that what we do requires you to do appointment listening. Oh, it's time for the Zydeco program. I've got to tune that in on Tuesday night.
At 8 p.m.
That's right. So that we hope to have something, at least one thing on our air that every single listener will tune in for at least once a week. There's something that you want to hear so much, you'll remember to tune in on Tuesday night at 8, even if you don't listen other time. We don't want all the listeners all the time. We want everybody at least part of the time.
Yeah. And you can get that information if you go to KMUZ.org. There's a tab that
Our
says schedule, and you can look up to see what the various programs are and get an idea about what shows you might be interested in to give a listen
Right,
to.
and if it's a talk show, very likely it's been podcast, so check the program archives.
Right.
And tune in Saturday the 24th at 10 a.m. for our brand new translator.
All right, we're
100.7.
excited. We're excited.
Well, I think we should leave it right there, because I think that is a good note to end on. And this has been Valley View, and come back next week when we have a different program.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ken.